Hey guys, it's GT here, and it's been far too long since we've had Andy Hoffman from Miles Franklin on the line. Andy, welcome back.
Thanks for having me.
Well, thanks for being here. Hey, I want to start with a little satire for everybody. Are you ready?
Yep.
Okay, I just want you and everybody to know that everything is looking great. The government is going to slash spending. The troops are coming home. The mainstream media has been nothing but fair and balanced and kind, giving ample time for Americans to learn all about the Ron Paul revolution. Ron Paul looks set to win the GOP nomination and most likely the presidency. And Andy, things are looking so good, we can all sell our physical gold and silver, right?
Well, you don't need me on this call then. I didn't realize it was so easy.
No, that's a wrap. I'm closing down the site. We're done.
Well, obviously that is satire because from the last time I was speaking with you a month ago, things have gotten exponentially worse. There's not a thing that I look at that hasn't gotten worse, and the outlook for real money versus paper money only gets stronger.
What are you ranting about? What is concerning you the most as of this moment?
Well, today it's more about, this was a typical operation. I think sometimes the cartel gets a little surprised by days like yesterday. But the fact remains they've been covering their shorts for some weeks now. The 200-day moving average of gold has only been breached on the downside for roughly 5% of all the trading days in the last 12 years. Almost all of it was during the bottom in 2008. And so given that it's steadily rising and it's 1685 right now, it's just very, very difficult for them to meaningfully push the price below. So what we're seeing in the last week was another failed attempt to do so. We see this massive 6 or 7 month reverse head and shoulders pattern that's almost completed in both silver and gold. I haven't seen one this long standing and strong looking any time in my investing career. And the same goes for euro gold and yen gold and pretty much everything across the board.
When we talk about the metals world, you and I follow some of the top minds, and I consider you one of them. So Jim Sinclair, James Turk, Ted Butler, David Morgan. Then we have some of the guys that are a little bit more out on the periphery with some of the conspiracy theories like Bix Weir. I know that you and Andy Schechtman like to read Bix's stuff from time to time. And then there's Lindsey Williams, who has just recently made a prediction that his sources say that the dollar will be toast yet in 2012. What do you think the chances are of that, Andy? Do you think the dollar could we see the death of the dollar in 2012?
It's such an ambiguous term, the dollar, because it's really all the paper currencies in the world are based on the dollar. So if you're saying, will the dollar die, will all the paper currencies die? There is literally no way that you can have a, quote, collapse of the dollar without a collapse of let's say the yuan, which is pegged to the dollar, the euro, which is in far, far more dire straits right now than America is, the pound, the yen, all these things. So really the question is, will there be a currency collapse this year? And, the interesting thing is you mentioned Jim Sinclair, also one of my heroes who, frankly, I have never seen him in 10 years speak as frequently, as intensely about his fears about what's coming in the near term. That said, he's talking about the dollar, as you say, falling to the 72 level, which is its all-time low this year, which I find just an incredible thought because that would imply a sharply increasing euro to record highs. So again, I have a real hard time reconciling the concept of paper currencies falling against each other. The bigger question is, will the dollar crash against gold this year? Will the euro crash against gold this year? And when I say crash, I mean a breaking of the cartel and some of these big prices that we're talking about finally getting realized. Could it happen? Sure. Should it happen? Absolutely. It's only a matter of when. And the key for all listeners is to make sure that whether it happens next month, next week, or a year from now, that you are positioned correctly with physical gold and silver.
Yeah, you make a great point about the dollar, and we should flesh that out for listeners, that when Lindsey Williams talks about the death of the dollar, he's actually talking about the death of the euro, too, because he's always said when you see the euro go, that's when you know you've got just a few weeks left before the dollar then follows suit. Hey, I'm just quoting what he says. I'm not saying that's what's going to happen, but he does have a mixed track record, and sometimes he's very accurate. But let's get back to your writing, and going Bats, one of your latest rants here, you talk about high-frequency trading and the fact that Goldman Sachs has destroyed the world world in countless ways, which includes essentially destroying folks' portfolios. Why don't you flesh that out for us a little bit? Are we ever going to see any real justice for the real criminals that are running rampant in this country?
Well, to answer your last question, no, we won't. What we'll see is the system fall apart, and really, I don't really care if they have justice. What I care about is that this flawed system is destroyed and started over anew with something that'll work. As far as the going bats, yeah, I mean, just Friday alone, or Thursday, you saw 3 separate major HFT flash crash breakdowns. One of them was in Apple. One of them was in a double short volatility ETF called TVIX, and then of course BATS. I've never seen anything like it in my life. It priced an IPO, 6 million shares at $16 a share. The range was 16 to 18, and within an hour it was 3 cents, and they canceled the IPO. And to me, this is nothing but the destruction of computers. It just proves my point that computers have taken over the markets. There is absolutely, utterly nothing that's real about what you see in the Dow Jones propaganda average, which is supported by the PPT, in the Treasury bonds, which are supported by QE, in the currency markets, which are messed around with pegging currencies, in the Exchange Stabilization Fund, and of course in the paper metal markets, care of the cartel. I mean, Goldman Sachs, I believe HFT trading is now something like 75% of all New York Stock Exchange trading, as well as a big percentage of COMEX trading for that matter, and Goldman Sachs has something like a 20% market share. So in essence, Goldman Sachs is trading 1 out of every 6 shares, 1 out of every 6 trades on the New York Stock Exchange every day, which is basically the government controlling the market. And that's why I tell people, in all ways, shapes, and forms, avoid all paper investments. I don't care if you're long, you're short, you're in stocks, you're in bonds, you're in mining shares. You stay out of those rigged paper markets. The only way that you can beat them, and you will beat them, is with physical gold and silver that's not margined.
Well, it reminds me, Andy, of that scene in Office Space. Do you remember that movie where the guys came up with a software program to fleece fractions of a penny out of... That's what's going on with these high-frequency trades, except Goldman Sachs is fleecing everybody out of their stocks and their portfolios with just fractions of a penny here and there, times billions and billions of shares.
You know, it's funny, though. Office Space, I think, is one of the funniest movies I've ever seen. But that concept was actually stolen. Do you know what movie it was stolen from the 1980s?
No, what?
Superman 3 with Richard Pryor.
Mm-hmm.
Richard Pryor did the exact same thing, and that's where they got the concept from. But as for HFT trading, I agree and I disagree because, yes, they are scalping money on these front-running computers. I think Goldman Sachs actually has the computer that is the physically closest to the New York Stock Exchange servers of any of the other computers. But what I'm talking about has nothing to do with scalping. I don't care about that. I care about using it as a means to manipulate prices, whether it's mining shares or ETFs or Treasury bonds or futures. The computer trading is simply used to attack markets. I mean, when we had the leap day violation 3 weeks ago, 375 million paper ounces hit the silver market, literally coincident with Ben Bernanke speaking. That's a half year of global production. And the only way you can accomplish something like that is with HFT computers. In fact, if you saw the article, I think it was about 3 or 4 days ago on Zero Hedge, they actually have a snapshot of one of these HFTs in SLV. And what it did was, it's so scary, it's saying over a 25 nanosecond period, the average rate of sell orders in SLV, and this was not during some big smash day, was 75,000 orders per second. Now, I don't know what's more scary, the fact that computers can put those kind of sell orders in, or that a 25 nanosecond period is now considered a statistically significant amount of time. The fact is, computers have taken over the markets, particularly anything that has to do with paper, precious metals, and the only way you're going to escape and beat them is by avoiding them completely.